And I would expect that his bill probably is in excess of 2,000 pages too. We really ought to have an opportunity to look at it and try to understand. But the mandates that are in there, it says that, you know, if you're a private citizen, you are mandated to buy health insurance. A number of states, I think well over 30 states across the country, have passed laws saying that the federal government can't mandate that. There's another reaction, see, against what the approach is. So this is a very critical time, and there's going to be a lot of arm twisting to try to get people to pass this bill. I'm certainly, if you haven't guessed, I'm opposed to it, but and I voted against it in the House.
It appears, at least on the news media front, that it's just an argument back and forth. Republicans, the party of no, the Democrats want the government control. How do you feel about the news media's coverage of that, and is that really the case?
Well, if you look at the national news media, clearly there's been studies going back 30, nearly 40 years that there is clearly a liberal bias on the national level. But with the advent of the internet and all the different ways now that people can get
Very
news
fast.
Very, very quickly, instantaneously, there are different options for people to look at. So I think people are getting a much, much broader range of news, and then they're making up their own mind on what they think is the proper way to go. It's not being filtered as it was, say, 30 years ago when you only had 3 networks. Now you have, my goodness, cable news and the internet. That combination means that we have a lot more information at our hand than we've ever had before. And the people always have looked at that, and they're making their own minds up, and they're coming down, at least again, as polls, Snapshot and Times have said, against this healthcare system.
Are you hearing more and more from your constituents who are worried about this?
Yeah, we started hearing that way back last spring, and obviously it reached quite a crescendo. Once that they had the vote in the House, and I voted against it, we're still hearing, but probably not to the intensity that we were initially. But that tends to focus, because if when the House passed their bill, then all the focus was on the Senate, and I imagine all the senators got a great deal of votes. Now the focus seems to be coming back to the House, and I suspect that my communication with people will probably build up again, because people are worried about that, as they should be.
What are some issues that you're working on? I know you're going to be working on the budget. Are there some hot issues that the local folks in your area have talked about?
Yeah, one of the issues that we always, it's always a challenge, is to make sure that the cleanup at Hanford continues on.
That's right.
We need to remind ourselves that Hanford existed because we were in the middle of a hot war, the Second World War. And we need to be reminded that we won that war based on the work that was done by those people out at Hanford. But building an atomic weapon generates a huge amount of waste, radioactive waste and or hazardous waste, and that needs to be cleaned up. And so that's what the cleanup is. It's the responsibility of the war effort, and for that matter, 40 years after the war, we were in defense production. So there's just a lot of waste that needs to be cleaned up. They've made tremendous progress out there, I know, in the time that I've been in office. But that is, and we work, by the way, in a bipartisan way on that. And delegates across the board have been very been helpful. So but the idea is just keep that momentum going as much as we can. But one issue of kind of particular issue is the getting the B reactor as
the museum.
Part.
Yeah, historical.
The National Park Service came back and said, "Gee, we're not involved in maintaining nuclear facilities." Listen, that's more of an excuse than anything.
Sure.
The department said, "Hey,
Sure.
listen, we'll take care of that. You just make sure that people can see it." So those discussions are going on. But the B reactor, and I see there's lined up now for other tours.
There's a tour starting
Yeah.
today.
Well, yeah, and that goes on, I think, until September. And I would certainly encourage anybody who's never taken the opportunity to go out and see that, because it's something to see. And it needs to be preserved. So that's a small issue, but very important, to our area here.
Okay, talk about Yucca Mountain. Here was a place that we'd all decided on where to put this waste, and it's kind of out of the picture.
Well, that decision was made over 20 years ago. There was three areas that were being debated as for the site of the actual repository, Hanford being one of them, a county in Texas, and then Yucca Mountain. And the Congress decided that Yucca Mountain would be the best place. Now, that was over 20 years ago, and we've spent billions of dollars going through that. But it has never been popular in Nevada. And Nevada politicians in both parties, rail against this thing. Just about every year we have a test vote on the House floor on the appropriations to defund Yucca. Every year it passes overwhelmingly. There's probably 15 or 20 votes at the max that ever vote against funding it. But this is a political issue. And particularly it's a political issue for Senator Harry Reid, who happens to be the majority leader, happens to be from Nevada. And he has said he doesn't want Yucca Mountain there, and so with no scientific basis, at least thus far, the Obama administration said we're going to close down Yucca Mountain. Now, that raises a number of questions. First of all, what do we do with the waste that we are cleaning up and vitrifying here? Part of that 53 million gallons of radioactive waste in the tanks that's going to be vitrified, that was supposed to go to Yucca Mountain, National Repository. But also, and then of course the commercial reactors like Energy Northwest.
That's right.
Spent fuel there.
Yeah.
That was supposed to go to Yucca Mountain. And the number of other nuclear reactors across the country. Ratepayers have spent billions of dollars, and that is now being stored at the various sites. So this issue is far from over, but it is a political issue. It is not an issue based on policy. Interestingly enough, Secretary of Energy Chu, formed a blue ribbon commission. He was about a year late forming that. And it'll be interesting to see what exactly comes out of that blue ribbon commission. At the end of October, I sent President Obama a letter. I've not received an answer yet. Maybe, well, it might have come in over the weekend. I don't know. But asking a number of questions. This is before the blue ribbon commission was formed. What is the basis for this blue ribbon commission? Are you going to look at other sites, including Yucca Mountain, as a final repository? I mean, what is the basis of all this? I asked him specifically, what about the liability, legal liability? Those are all in my letter that I sent to the President in October. No answer yet, and like I say, it's a political issue. It's not a policy issue.
You've been in Congress quite a number of years now. How do you feel about this administration?
Well, this administration is probably farther to the left philosophically than any that I would imagine. Now, when then Senator Obama was running for president, I was asked a number of times about what I felt about him. Obviously, I was supporting John McCain. And my response generally was, well, we are rated by a number of news organizations, various rating agencies, where we are in a political spectrum, right and left. President Obama consistently was the most left of center senator in the U.S. Senate. So now that he's elected president, he appears to be governing from that position. So at least I'll give him credit, for that consistency. But the conflict is I don't believe America is a left of center country philosophically. I think, in fact, it's more right of center than anything. So he's governing contrary to where the American people want to go. And the healthcare debate is a classic example because he truly believes that government takeover is the way to go. Obviously, the American people have rejected that, not only by the polls, but by the latest election that we had on this issue, and that was the senatorial race in Massachusetts.
That's right.
Scott Brown said very specifically, I want to be the 41st senator to filibuster against this health care. Now, you can't be more open about that than that, and even Massachusetts, voters voted him in. So, yet the president seems to be governing from that left position, and I find it surprising.